Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. Poland is taking further steps to strengthen the North Atlantic Alliance. Monday saw Polish and U.S. representatives sign a $2 billion contract for Patriot missile logistical support. We will explore this subject later in the program, so stay with us to learn about the details. But before we dive in, let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Ukraine, not Russia, will determine foreign troop presence, says Polish foreign minister. Court ruling bans French far-right leader Marine Le Pen from running for office. Russian drones spied on a strategic EU research center in northern Italy. Poland signed a $2 billion contract with the U.S. for logistical support for the Patriot missile defense systems. There can be no room for confrontation within the North Atlantic Pact between allies, said Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk at an official ceremony concluding the deal. Zuzanna Jurek brings us the latest on the Wisła air defense program and what it will mean for our region.
US and Polish officials signed the second phase of the agreement for the training and logistical support of the Patriot batteries. Speaking at a press conference earlier today, this is what Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk had to say in regards to the reasoning driving this investment.
To us, security, Polish-American cooperation and the stability of NATO are not abstract ideas. They are important issues, and we demonstrate our commitment to these issues by investing billions of euro in our security. We have shown unwavering commitment to our alliance partnerships, particularly in recent months, and our track record speaks for itself. Regardless of political turmoil, Poland will continue to be a reliable and committed partner in the region, upholding its commitments and fostering stability.
Today's agreement is phase 2 of the Wisła program, which aims to strengthen and revitalize Poland's air defense systems.
We need to treat defense, the rebuilding of our defense industries seriously. This is what I hope we'll be discussing.
Wisła program specifically aims to combat medium-range missiles.
A key component of this agreement are the simulators, which will allow our soldiers, the best soldiers in the Polish armed forces and specialists in air defense, to train their responses to simulated attacks in order to achieve full operational readiness.
Today's agreement will also allow Poland to reach full operational readiness of the Patriot batteries. Back in February 2024, Poland was one of the first countries, just after the US, to employ the Integrated Air and Missile Defense and Battle Command Systems, or IBCSs, the most advanced and sophisticated systems currently available. Outside of the US, Poland is the only US ally which has access to these systems, which are said to be fully integrated into the Patriot batteries by 2031. For TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Ukraine, not Russia, has the right to decide whether it wants foreign troops on its territory, said Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski during his address at the meeting of the Big Five in Madrid. Poland's chief diplomat also emphasized that a ceasefire deadline should be put in place, as the world should not just wait for Putin to stop the killing. Sonia Gatabiszczan made her way to the meeting in Madrid and has this report.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski was in Madrid to meet with his counterparts. The overarching topics of the discussion included strengthening European security and enhancing assistance to Ukraine. Sikorski indicated that this meeting was an extension of the Weimar Triangle meeting held in Warsaw last year. On Monday, it included representatives from 7 countries as well as the EU top diplomat Kaja Kallas, who reflected on peace talks and Europe's next steps in that respect.
Russia is playing games and not really wanting peace. So our question is, how can we put more pressure on Russia?
Sikorski noted that the closer the countries are to Russia, the more likely they are to invest in defense. At the same time, he welcomed the expansion of what used to be the Weimar Triangle, as he said that this indicates that countries understand that Russia is a real threat not only to the eastern flank, but to Europe as a whole.
Russia is not only bombing in Ukraine, it is conducting a hybrid war against all of us. Here in Spain, there is disinformation, there are attempts at political manipulation, but in many countries we also have other elements of hybrid war just below the threshold of kinetic action.
This meeting was hosted by Spain, which invests approximately 1.3% of its GDP in defense, considerably less compared to Poland's 4.7% of its GDP planned for 2025. Nonetheless, this is the very reason why Spain wanted to host this meeting, to show that despite a more modest defense expenditure, it still takes security very seriously. From Madrid, for TVP World, I'm Sonia Gatabishchan.
Is this a bitter end to Marine Le Pen's political career? It could be, as the French far-right leader was convicted of embezzlement on Monday and handed an immediate 5-year ban from serving in public office. This means that the politician will be barred from running in the 2027 presidential race unless she appeals successfully. Sasha Farbach reports.
In a rush, Marine Le Pen left the court early, her political fate already determined. France's most popular politician and 3-time presidential candidate has just been handed a stunning sentence by a French court. The verdict? A crushing 4-year jail term and a ban from holding any political office for 5 years, dashing her hopes for a 2027 presidential bid.
Firstly, we're going to signal that we are going to appeal. That's the first point. Despite her appeal, Marine Le Pen can call on no institution, no court, to see this provisional execution suspended. It's a totally vicious circle. And I think fundamentally that this blow today is, and I'm using the court's term, a blow to democracy.
Le Pen and 24 other National Rally officials were convicted of misappropriating more than 4.1 million euros in European Parliament funds intended for parliamentary aids to pay party staff between 2004 and 2016. This breach of EU regulations also led to guilty verdicts for 8 other former or current MEPs from her party. President Emmanuel Macron's popularity has taken a hit, with the most recent polls hovering around 32%. His longtime opponent, Marine Le Pen, was poised to make a 4th consecutive bid for the presidency in 2027, after a far-right party gained ground in both 2017 and 2022, coming just 3% short of Macron in the second round. But with her political future now blocked, all eyes are turning to party leader Jordan Bardella. Yet some experts are skeptical, questioning whether he has what it takes to carry the National Rally forward.
He might be the one running, but will he draw the same kind of poll numbers that Le Pen is drawing at the moment, which are quite staggering, highest of all possible candidates in France? So that's an open question.
The ruling in Paris today was already sharply criticized by Le Pen's allies in France, as well as around Europe, with Prime Minister Viktor Orban as well as Dutch far-right leader Geert Wilders showing their support.
I am Marine. I am shocked by the incredible tough verdict against Marine Le Pen. I support and believe in her for the full 100%, and I trust she will win the appeal and become president of France.
With the decision of the court, experts now believe the far right could use this crisis as an opportunity for themselves.
What are the other national populist leaders going to do? Like Trump, for example, or J.D. Vance. I mean, is J.D. Vance going to jump to her defense?
My sense is that the far right in France and also in other European countries could benefit from it, because this verdict gives them a justification to claim that they are victims of the system.
As Le Pen's legal team moved to appeal, some experts predict that this political crisis may actually help the right and Jordan Bardella.
Today's verdict actually makes it more likely for the French far right and the French right to unite or at least build stronger bridges, which would make them an even more important force on the French political scene.
The political fallout is just beginning, but this could signal yet another precarious moment for France at a time when the country desperately needs stability. Sasha Farbach, TVP World.
As tensions escalate between Europe and Russia, it is not only the Baltic states and the CEE countries that observe increased Russian activity. Italian prosecutors have launched an investigation into spying drones seen flying over an EU research center in northern Italy. In the words of the Italian daily Il Messaggero, Russia is waging a shadow war against the country. The question many seem to be asking now is how far Russia's tentacles actually reach. TVP World's defense correspondent Marek Steele investigated the case in search of an answer.
Ispra, northern Italy, one of 3 key European Commission research facilities.
Operational energy saving logic.
The plant may have been under surveillance by Russian drones.
Anti-drone systems have detected 5 drone passes in recent weeks over the EU Joint Research Centre in Ispra in the province of Varese, just a few kilometres away from the Leonardo plants.
The EU Joint Research Centre, located on Lake Maggiore, carries out both nuclear and non-nuclear research. The site is surrounded by plants belonging to Italy's leading arms manufacturer, Leonardo. Surveillance drones likely of Russian manufacture being spotted in the area have prompted a response from authorities. An investigation into the matter was launched Monday by the Milan prosecutor's office's anti-terrorism department. The territory could be a target for Russian intelligence.
In asking why Italy, it's important to point out that Russia has made no secret of the fact that it considers the whole EU, so not just the eastern flank, but the entire EU, as an enemy.
With Russian spying vessels and submarines having been recently spotted in the waters of the Mediterranean, daily Il Messaggero states that Italy is under constant surveillance by Russia, but not only Italy.
This follows a broader pattern of Russia either trying to subvert the EU as a whole by hybrid attacks or outright acts of aggression. For example, Russia has been associated with arson attacks in Poland, Lithuania, and or more subtle hybrid actions.
The extent of Russia's hybrid war against Europe was revealed in a recent Associated Press investigation. The report details 59 incidents of arson, sabotage, vandalism, violence, and cyber breaches across Europe that can be attributed to Russia. Marek Steele, TVP World.
And now we move to Brussels. The European Commission remains steadfast in its support for Ukraine's bid to join the EU. It comes as officials in Kyiv have reaffirmed that they would not ink a minerals deal with Washington that could jeopardize the country's accession process. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has this report from the Belgian capital.
The European Commission reiterated its support for Ukraine to join the 27-member-strong European Union. On Monday, the comments were made by a spokesperson from the EU executive and come off the back of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stating he would not sign any deal with the US that could jeopardize Ukraine's accession process. Now, late last week, various media outlets were reporting that the latest version of a controversial minerals deal between Ukraine and the US would put Washington first in line when it comes to deciding whether it wants the acquisition of various minerals, oil and gas. This would raise serious questions about whether Ukraine would follow the rules of the single market and the European Union. A journalist put this to the European Commission at a press conference on Monday. Let's take a listen to what they had to say in response.
On our side, our position is clear. Enlargement is and will remain a priority for this Commission. Ukraine belongs to the European family. That's why the EU opened accession negotiations with Ukraine in June 2024. Ukraine has unequivocally proven its determination to advance in its EU accession and has undertaken and delivered on transformative reforms while fighting for its very survival and defending itself against Russia's ongoing war.
Currently, there are roughly half a dozen clusters that need to be opened and closed for Ukraine to join the EU, but Hungary is using its veto power to block the opening of these talks. It comes as the mail-in ballot scheme started started on Saturday. This is a measure spearheaded by that country's Prime Minister to gauge the public's appetite on whether they want Ukraine to join the EU. But we've heard critics describe this process as another one of Orban's propaganda tools. We also know that Poland, as part of its EU Council presidency, wants Ukraine to join the European Union family before that mandate winds up in June. But we'll have to see whether these conversations progress or they lead to a stalemate. Angela Scoogens from Brussels for TVP World.
A sharp drop in approval ratings of President Erdogan's AK party is yet another sign that his decision to arrest his political opponent and mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, backfired. After days of protests attended by millions of people in Istanbul alone, more rallies were announced across the country. Aisha Bacı has more on the story.
Turkey's political tensions persist and prove increasingly challenging to the central government.
I mean, it's an uprising done out of necessity, because no one wants to live like this.
Our country is already in an economic crisis, no matter how much it is not shown. Prices have skyrocketed, so living conditions are very difficult. And now, on top of that, elected people are locked up.
Following the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu, the popular mayor of Istanbul, on March 19th, a recent survey has indicated a decline in President Erdogan's AKP party approval ratings, while İmamoğlu's Republican People's Parties have risen and is in the lead. Not only that, but the opposition doesn't seem to be backing down, calling for nationwide anti-government protests, the largest in over a decade, and a rally attended by millions in Istanbul on Saturday.
The crowd is estimated 2.2 million, and yes, it is one of the biggest in Turkish history.
Additionally, the CHP vowed to collect 27.7 million signatures in a petition calling for the release of the jailed mayor and early elections. The goal is to match the number of votes President Erdogan received in the 2023 elections.
What we see is almost unprecedented, right? Because we had only one instance in the recent history of Turkey of such a massive protest, which were Gezi Park protests or Gezi movement, which were held like 12 years ago.
But domestic voices may be the only ones that could trigger a change.
President Erdogan may think that, well, Turkey is such an important player, and this is something which is very often told by the Turkish leader, that no matter what is happening in the domestic Turkish politics, EU will have to work together with Turkey, particularly taking into account the current transatlantic relations.
In a bid to hold on to the momentum, CHP leader Özgür Özel announced that his party would hold a rally in another province every weekend and a rally in Istanbul's districts every Wednesday. Reporting for TVP World, I'm Aisha Bacı.
Poland and France are to sign a new comprehensive treaty. The document, called a Premium Treaty by the French, is to open a new chapter in bilateral relations with a strong emphasis on cooperation in the fields of defense and energy. To talk more about this significant development in the making, I'm joined by Karolina Borońska-Hryniewiecka, Associate Research Fellow from Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University. Good evening, and thank you for joining me on the program.
Good evening. Pleasure as always.
So we're looking at the Premium Treaty. It's meant to be first such important treaty, as it's been stressed by both sides, both French and Polish side together. But what is this treaty going to entail, and why this is such an important development?
Well, first of all, it is very important to say that this treaty that's coming probably late June, before the end of the Polish presidency, should be seen as a fruit of some sort of mutual recognition of the two countries, recognition of each other's credibility, a recognition of each other's rightness as well. And let me explain why. Well, first of all, for France, it's important recognition, and it has realized that the true nature of Putin and Russia is the one that was voiced by Poland for a long time, but was not efficiently or sufficiently heard. So that was the moment a few months ago, probably a year ago, where Macron has come to terms with the fact that he has to listen to the Central Eastern Europe. Moreover, the credibility of Poland has been confirmed by its very robust economic condition, as well as very, we would say, extensive investment in security policy. But on the other hand, Poland has also realized that Macron, at some point in the past, was a visionary. When he was talking about building strategic autonomy, when he was talking about being more independent from the US, let's remember also 2019 Macron's very controversial NATO brain death. That was all kind of unexpected, but it happens now. So he was a visionary. He's now vindicated for what he was saying. And Poland has also come to terms with that. So taking into account these two positions, Poland and France are becoming most important allies. Also in some sort of a vacuum of leadership, vacuum of intellectual entrepreneurship, a vacuum of the German influence as well. So I believe that this treaty will be a very important, I would say, a breakthrough agreement between the two countries, obviously containing a lot of concrete policy-oriented provisions.
And if we were to focus more and jump into this treaty when it comes to defense, how do you think this cooperation between France and Poland is going to be improved when it comes to defense? Such an important subject all across Europe these days.
Of course. Well, we have to say that no one really knows at the moment what are the specific provisions, but and let's remember that this will be a very comprehensive treaty starting from education, culture, even tourism, through energy to economic issues and then defense. But taking into account the current circumstances, obviously defense is the most important topic. And while it's difficult to predict what will be the agreement about, we can assume that the treaty will regulate for sure closer cooperation between the two countries' arms industries. Let's remember that for Macron, it's been always important to stress to buy European. What do we mean by that? It's obviously the major weakness of the European defense sector. It's fragmentation, as well as the fact that many countries are outsourcing, so buying abroad, outside of Europe. Poland is actually an emblematic example here, because we've been relying on equipment from the US for a long time, also from Korea. So I can imagine that this treaty will regulate closer cooperation between the industries, maybe including some sort of facilitation of potential contracts in some spirit of partnership. I don't know, it could, for example, mean that some parts of the equipment that we'll buy from France will buy on some preferential conditions. And also, as Warsaw requires, it could be produced in the plants located in Poland. So this way, we could imagine, and I think this is very realistic, that some part of what Poland will spend on military equipment should stay in domestic defense industry. So this is just one of the ideas how it can be operationalized. But I think that there is much more to that.
Do you think that France is actually going to be able to convince Poland to shop local?
To shop local? Well, I think that Poland is slowly coming to terms with the new geopolitical shift, transatlantic shift that has been taking place. We are in some sort of uncomfortable situation, because we have always counted on the US, and we have always undoubtedly treated US as the strongest ally and provider of security. And we are also financially a beneficial partner for the US. But taking into account what has been going on for the last several weeks or even months, we really have to shift our focus. We have to shift our engagement. We also, as a country that is truly pro-European at the moment, that is cooperating very closely through the leaders, Donald Tusk, with the Commission, von der Leyen, we are committed to building this defense union that was, the idea of it was laid out in the last weeks. We are committed, we are no more looking at building our own European security as some sort of competition to NATO. We have realized that this is the only way to go because the history has been accelerating so fast and some of the allies are not reliable anymore.
I'd like to take a moment to look at an excerpt from Gazeta Wyborcza Daily here in Poland. We find that the content of the treaty is expected to be analogous to agreements previously concluded by France with Germany and Spain. Among other things, they also spoke of, I quote, providing all assistance in the event of an armed attack. In your opinion, does this mean that Poland is actually going to be joining under French nuclear deterrent, the nuclear umbrella?
I'm not a security expert, so I would rather not answer that question. What I think that we have a lot of interests, much more in common with France than differences at the moment. And also, you mentioned the German treaty and the Franco-German treaty and other treaties. It is very important to note that this Treaty of Nancy, because this will be signed, the treaty between Poland and France will be signed in the city of Nancy in France, probably by the end of June. This treaty is the first that France has signed or is signing with countries that are not bordering with it. So this is a big recognition for Poland. It's also elevating us to this, league of most important allies of France. And I think that here, basically, it's that whole avenue, a sea of possibilities is opening for the cooperation. We know that we can count on France in terms of strengthening also our eastern flank. We know that the French president is ready to send troops to Ukraine to stabilize potential ceasefire, which is in line with what Poland would expect, despite the fact that Poland is reluctant to send its own troops. So there is a lot of complementarity, and I believe that in the case of nuclear energy, we will also be willing to accept what France offers as one of the most important nuclear powers in the world.
So we spoke about the nuclear deterrent. Let's talk about the energy sector, because this is where nuclear applies as well. What do you think is going to be Germany's response if Poland decides to jump on board with that treaty and actually join forces to build another nuclear power plant on Polish soil, considering that Germany's nuclear phase-out was completed by April of 2023?
Well, I think that first of all, we have to look at the geopolitical consequences of this potential Franco-Polish treaty, because we know that the Weimar Triangle is slowly being reactivated after years of being a sleeping beauty, let's say. And for Germany, I think that the signing of this bilateral treaty it will be a push or a trigger to think about Poland as another important strategic partner with whom it should also sign similar agreement, because we know that the Franco-German relations have always been very strong since the beginning of the European integration. They have been strengthened by the common effort to build a strong Europe, to build a Eurozone, etc. But then, over the last years, it has been weakened. It has been weakened most of all due to a very weak German leadership by Prime Minister, by Chancellor Scholz. So here now we have a new German coalition soon to be established, and we'll see what are going to be the next steps. Let's remember that what is important now on the European side is pragmatism. We have to be pragmatic. Germany has to be pragmatic. There is no time for looking for mutual differences. I'm referring here to the nuclear energy. I would think that pragmatism will prevail, and Germany will also find itself a place within this new, I would say, Franco-Polish dynamism that is going to take place.
Unfortunately, I need to take a moment to interrupt you because our time here on the program is coming to an end. But very shortly, before I let you go, what do you think now that Marine Le Pen has been barred from actually running in 2027 election? What is the far right going to do in France?
Well, I think that they're going to use this kind of a shocking verdict, because everybody expected that she will be convicted, but really little people, I mean, just a few persons would think that this will take an immediate effect, the ineligibility. So I think that now it is kind of a gift to the far right, because they will be able to play the populist note of presenting Marine Le Pen as a martyr. And I think that with the popularity that she's now enjoying in the polls, she might, from behind the scenes, push the new leader, maybe Bardella, maybe someone else, to an easy victory in 2027. So this is a paradoxical situation.
Thank you so much, Karolina Borońska-Hryniewiecka, Associate Research Fellow from Paris 1, Pantheon-Sorbonne University. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
And so this would be all for now here on World News Tonight, but please do stay tuned. Stay here on TVP World. We're back in just a moment with more news and features.